School governors face a wide range of issues whilst attempting to manage their schools successfully. This programme focuses on a team of governors tackling some of the responsibilities that can be encountered. Our panel have been placed in the role of new governors at a hypothetical school. They'll be shown a sequence of 3 reconstructed events, each developing a dilemma facing the governing body. Their challenge after each stage will be to use their experience to discuss their duties and how best they could handle the situation. Meet the panel. Julie Reid, an LEA governor with 16 years' experience. Martin Brook, a parent governor with 13 years' experience. And Eric Pepper, a community governor for the last 10 years. Keeping a close eye on the proceedings and assessing the governor's performance is Paul McGann, an education officer with 15 years of experience supporting and training governors and troubleshooting problems in schools. How will the team handle the challenge? A school decides that its entrance area is in need of renovation. The proposed work is raised at a governing body meeting for discussion. One governor says this could be an opportunity to enhance the disabled access to the school, which is currently poor. The school has no disabled pupils on its roll at present. However, the parents of one pupil have expressed their desire to send her sister, a wheelchair user, to the school next year. The school budget is limited, and the head is worried that it cannot stretch to include suitable disabled access. The panel start by debating the issue of disabled access provision.
As from October of last year, the schools are bound by law.
Yeah, that's right.
Duty bound, yes.
Yeah.
Duty bound by law to have everything in the school, ramps, doors, disabled toilets under the Disability
The Centre
Act.
Act.
It is a point that there are a lot of things that we need in our school, more than we needed a lift for one pupil.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you sometimes think that you're making an example of this child because it's therefore going to benefit everybody. In certain things with disablement, you're actually benefiting one person to the detriment of everybody else because you're not able to spend that money on something that they actually all need.
Yeah, but it's not one person, is it? Because if you get a parent in on parents' evening, you might get a new member of staff.
I know, I agree, but these are all ifs, buts and maybes.
Oh, yeah.
They're not physically there now. We haven't got enough textbooks.
Yeah, but they can never come if you don't change it.
I agree, but we haven't got enough textbooks.
Yeah,
we
I know, I
haven't got
agree.
enough this, we haven't got enough
and
that.
the school budget's not big enough, I agree.
And we've had to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on a lift.
I appreciate that, Martin, but that's the law of the land, and it says that we've got to have these things in the school, and there's nothing that the governors can do about it, and there's nothing that the headmaster can do about it.
No, I agree.
The only thing is where is he going to get the money from?
All schools should be totally inclusive. And
they should.
Disabled people and children should all be able to have a choice of any school, even to the extent of certain things not being provided for everybody else, because it's the message it sends out.
In focusing on the needs of one individual child, the governors are in danger here of focusing on disability as a problem to be solved rather than an opportunity to be taken advantage of. In fact, inclusive schools are what all schools should be aiming to be, and there are benefits to the whole school community of making schools as inclusive as possible. It's also the case that it's not necessarily fair to measure up the cost of spending money on disability with the cost of other emotive issues like textbooks. The issue for governors here is whether they can make arrangements to plan for the longer term as well as the short-term issues. I know it's difficult when budgets are tight, but if the school is planning major changes, including widening disabled access, then they need to think about putting some money aside on a year-by-year basis in order to plan for the future.
I get really frustrated that more schools don't talk to each other about the similar problem. You might be that you employ one company, you can get it done cheaper because they're going to do 3 ramps instead of just 1 ramp. If more schools were able to talk to each other through either one person or 2 or 3 people, you could pool resources.
Don't you have a head teachers forum?
Yes,
Oh,
head
yeah,
teachers,
but
yes,
yes,
but
but
they
that
don't
doesn't- they
necessarily
don't spread
talk
it down
about...
to other people.
This is what I was saying to you earlier, where here, in this region, we have a governors forum and we have a representative on the head teachers forum, and they have a representative on the governors
So you've
forum.
got like a thing,
Right.
yes, you've
So
got that
you have that link,
interconnection.
yeah.
That
Right.
sounds good.
Our panel have raised a really important point here. In a world where schools are encouraged to be competitive, either through the publication of league tables or from parental choice on admissions, it's easy to forget that schools still face very similar problems. And any collaboration that governors can encourage, either locally or through such things as a governors' forum, are bound to bring advantages to the whole educational community.
The school decide to go ahead and renovate the entrance area, including the disabled access. It's recognised that this will cause significant disruption to the entrance area during the works. The governing body therefore meet to discuss the issues that need to be taken into consideration. At the meeting, the chair of governors announces that her brother's company wishes to tender for the contract.
I've been involved in recent renovation of an entrance there, and it did cause a significant amount of disruption.
It's got to be organised properly.
So that you lost one playground. I mean, this was in a primary school.
Right.
And you've got all, the situation of work, men on site.
Sure.
Who, I raised at governing body, are they police checked, and all of those kind of, because you don't know who's working for the company. And while you're doing it, it's best to think about, well, we need extra space.
Sure.
So we're going to put an area for the receptionist, we're going to put a head teacher's own office, which is quite often what happens nowadays.
Sure.
Some schools incorporate these porta cabins during this renovation period and put the school secretary, the headmaster and the deputy
in a porta cabin.
In a porta cabin.
Yeah.
Well, it works, Martin. It works. As long as he's on site, he can to supervise what's happening.
Wherever the work is, it should be closed off completely.
Yeah, that's right.
From pupils and staff until it's finished.
Yeah.
And you've got to find another way in.
And
We've got to do another entrance.
traffic, come in before the kids and they go home after the kids.
In a minor building work of this type, it will fall to the governing body to consider all of the possible implications to the school. There will be advice available from the local education authority, but it is useful at this stage for the governing body to consider all of the issues that might be involved in such a building work. For instance, the issue of security has been raised, the issue of health and safety, the issue of the disruption to children's education, and to ensure that there are contingency plans and policies in place to deal with all of the possible eventualities. The main thing that governing bodies can add to this process is local knowledge about the school and the way in which the school works. And it's important that in the tendering process, the companies that are going to tender for this project are very well aware of all the restrictions that might be placed on them in getting this project done, and that governing bodies have made their requirements absolutely well known.
The panel move on to debate whether it's appropriate for the chair of governor's brother to tender for the job.
Most LEAs or council authorities have a list of builders.
Yes.
Whom
they call them considerate contractors now, don't they? These list of.
That's right. But as for inviting the governor's brother to do it, no way.
But you see, these things do happen.
Yeah.
And like you said,
the guy might be the best and most economic for the job. You don't know. I mean, having it in consideration, I wouldn't rule it out completely. Knowing that you know who it is, you just view it in the context of every other quote, and nobody gets special consideration. It just goes to the one that you think is going to do the job best. You've got to put your cards on the table, though,
of
haven't
course.
you?
And what if it goes wrong?
If she'd not said, and he got the job, then that would have been worse.
If you were, or she's the chair, she should have no input. No input.
Well, so presumably that's up to the rest of the governors then to vote whether it happens or it doesn't.
If the brother submits a contract, then the chairman of the governors should sit out of it.
The Chair of Governors has acted quite correctly in declaring an interest in the potential outcome of the tendering process. And it is, of course, important that all governors are open about any potential interests they may have. However, there's nothing wrong with the governing body going ahead and choosing the Chair of Governors' brother, as long as the process by which they make that choice is open and above board, fair and objective.
The subcommittee assigned to the task decides to employ the services of the chair's brother to complete the renovation work over the Easter holiday. However, halfway through the holiday, the head teacher receives a call from the foreman saying they have a problem. One of the subcontractors has failed to turn up, meaning the work has had to stop. The foreman says there's nothing they can do and the work will not be completed before the pupils are back in school. The head teacher phones the chair of governors to explain the situation and seek some advice. The head teacher is reluctant to allow the children back into school, with the building works still going on. Our governors begin by discussing the issue of allowing the children back into school.
You're going to have to let the kids back in. You can't not let the kids back in.
Reluctant to allow the school back into the building still going on. You know, you can't do that. He's got to go in. He's got to organise safe area. He's got to reorganise.
But that should have been thought about before.
Of course, he should.
There should have been a risk assessment done, and there should have been
contingency plan.
There should have been a contingency
plan.
What if?
Worst case scenario? Dilly-dee, dilly-da.
Because the parents will not be very happy after 2 weeks Easter break being told that the kids can't come back in school.
No.
Because they've got to go back to work.
And he can't do that anyway, because there's no guarantee that the subcontractor is going to turn up after a few days. It might be a month.
No. The only time that the school should be closed is if there's been an emergency where boilers burst or the heating's not working.
Yes,
or,
act of God.
Yeah, as long as the classrooms are OK for the kids to go into.
It's important that before building work starts, governors are aware of who exactly is going to be carrying out the work and whether any of this is going to be subcontracted. It's important, therefore, that the subcontractors are held to the same requirements as the main contract and that governors know about this in advance. It's also important that contingency plans are not thought of during the middle of an emergency, and our panel are quite right to say that the governing body should have thought of all of the consequences of this building work before it started. Finally, I think our panel are quite correct to say that the school should look at every alternative other than closing the school or parts of the school. This would include looking at other entrances, using other buildings, or if necessary changing the curriculum for a period of time to enable the building work to be completed safely.
Finally, our panel debate the potential consequences of choosing the chair's brother to do the work.
It's irrelevant whether it was the chairman's
No,
brothers,
it could have happened
whatever.
to anybody.
Could have happened to any contractor.
No, but it is relevant because now the head is phoning the chair of governors. This becomes personal.
So what we've got to think about is other governors' reactions and whether certain blame is going to be placed here.
And it will. And that will
Chair
not be
of
good for the
governors is
whole
the COE.
governing body. Could end up fighting and and collapsing, and the LEA might have to be called in.
It also depends on the relationship the chairman has with the rest of his governors. They will all have had to agree to this person doing the job in the first place. So, there's not just one responsibility here.
No.
But when it goes wrong, that's when they'll stick the
it
knife in.
Of course. All the infighting, the back down and the blaming has to be put on one side until the job is safe,
that's right.
the risk assessment's been done,
Exactly.
and then it's finished.
So the key now is to say, how would we get this job done?
There will inevitably be arguments when things like this go wrong. It's important that governors recognise that the more open they've been with everybody involved in the whole process as the thing has developed, the more likely it is that they end without major divisions which might affect the community and the school for a long period of time. Building work such as this can offer governors either problems to be solved or opportunities to develop, and it's important that governors look at this positively. For instance, on the issue of disabled access, making the school more inclusive will have very many positive benefits to the whole school community. Secondly, it's important that the governing body take account of all of the potential legal issues and get the appropriate advice before the tendering process takes place and before the building work starts. And finally, governors need to recognise that even with the best of intentions, occasionally things go wrong. What I would say is that the more open the governing body have been throughout the whole process, and the more everybody involved understands what people are trying to achieve, the less likely it is that these things will have a lasting damaging impact on the way in which the community views the school.